The curriculum that highlighted the Tuskegee Airmen in the Air Force is now being revised. Before I get into what I have to say, let me educate you a little bit on the Tuskegee Airmen if you don't know. The Tuskegee Airmen were African American pilots in the Air Force during the times of World War II when we were fighting against Germany. But remember, during this time was during the 1940s, the era of the Jim Crow. So there weren't any African American pilots before the Tuskegee Airmen. They were the first. Not just only Jim Crow, but other racist laws during this time prevented any attempts before the Tuskegee Airmen to become pilots, but the Air Force went against that. So between 1941 1946 is when 1,000 African American, roughly 1,000 African American pilots were trained at the Air Force Base in Tuskegee, Alabama. The Tuskegee Airmen flew more than 15,000 sorties between May of 1943 and June of 1945. During this time of war, they escorted the bombers during the war that was going on. And more than often, the bombers of those pilots requested the Tuskegee Airmen to transport them. At the time, they gave them the nickname Red Tails based on the color of the tail of the planes that they flew. These Tuskegee Airmen even flew double the amount of flights during those times of war than white pilots. Not only did the Tuskegee Airmen protect the bombers, they destroyed over 100 German aircrafts and completed missions all over North Africa, Europe, and Sicily. In 2007, the Tuskegee Airmen was awarded with the Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest honor that any citizen can receive from Congress. So remember what I said earlier. This was during the Jim Crow era. So not only were they facing the shitty equipment that they were given and the rough conditions of being at war, they also had to deal with the Jim Crow era laws and the other racial laws that they were going through during the time. They were fighting for a country that didn't even recognize them as a first-class citizen. They were considered second-class citizens. Even though they were doing these things during this time of war, they still was treated very poorly by other service members and dealt with a lot of racism during their entire time of service. The training was conducted in central Alabama, so the local white population was very hostile to the base and those trainees. Not only did they face hostile civilians in the local population, they also faced hostile commanders at this time while they were serving up under. So now I question the integrity of the leaders of our military that sit back and allow these things to happen and say, I'm just following orders. As long as we